Hello, how you doing? What seems to be the problem? Concavenator with a cavity in the chest. Yeah, it looks rough. Could be a few things. Malnourishment, struck by a big meteorite. It does look ghoulish. I'm thinking antibiotics. Well, we could run a test. Okay, tell me when it hurts. Well, it's not great news. I'm going to recommend you to a very good paleontologist.
Feel end of the world crybaby energy here. Papo are still the best despite some stumbles. Their general quality of sculpted paint is unmatched, except by PNSO or some occasional Safari-like models. Lacte is pretty good too, but Papo is still the best.
What's going on, guys? Certified Crybaby here. I hope you are mentally and physically prepared for this video. Sit down, get a glass of water, get some Pepto-Bismol because you're gonna need it. Today we're looking at the worst dinosaur figure that I have ever reviewed. Today we're looking at the Papo Concavenator. Oh, Papo. Oh, Papo. I have no words. I was already speechless when I saw this thing, and then the more in-hand pictures that came out, the more speechless I was, and here I am sitting in front of you holding it. And I've had this one in hand for a while now, and every time I pick it up, I just look at it and I'm like, someone approved this. Someone sat down, some Papo executive sat down, looked at this thing and said, yeah, that's gonna sell. That's gonna sell, guys. That is a good-looking concavenator right there. We're gonna make bank with that concavenator. Oh boy. Now here's the thing, I'm not even gonna talk about like anatomy for this figure because this just isn't a concavenator in any way. The only giveaway that it is it's got the hump above its hip, which it pains and saddens me to have been made aware that the position of the hump is technically more accurate than like the Jurassic World Evolution Concavenator, which is a really good representation of the genus, but I'm going to ignore that and say that it's wrong. The only thing I can really give this model as far as anatomy goes is the fact that they added like quills onto the forearms because we have the quill knob attachments on the fossil for Concavenator. And then we have these wonderful quills just sporadically placed around the rest of the sculpt on the underside of the body and on the back of the head and on the end of the tail. It looks like rotten spaghetti is just growing out of its body. But this isn't even the most egregious thing. Oh, no. One thing the promo images did not make aware, ladies and gentlemen, is if you flip this thing upside down, speaking of rotting, its rib cage is exposed. Come here. Its rib cage is exposed. His rib cage is Keep in mind of all the processes that this figure went through, okay? Like somebody conceived this idea and said, what if we expose the rib cage on this animal? And then they went to like the approval, like the higher ups in the company and said, look at this. And the rest of them said, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That's unique. No other dinosaur company has ever had a chunk of flesh ripped out of its chest cavity. Also, the head is just so ugly. It's got these big, like, platy scales running down its snout and down the top of its back and everything. And not to mention the osteoderms that are so uncomfortably, like, piercing through the skin on the back and just, like, I don't know. This thing, it's a literal zombie. It's a literal zombie dinosaur. I am just at a loss for words. And not to mention the black glossy, soulless eyes with no pupils that just kind of drive that home. Oh my gosh, and the way the skin just like folds around the gaping hole in its chest is so... Now. I've been ranting and raving about the anatomical just weirdness that this figure is bestowing upon us. But let's talk about the production quality, and that's where I think this is worse than the Papo Protoceratops. The Papo Protoceratops is already bad, but at least like, look at this. Okay, we're gonna put it up to the camera again. This is Papo Protoceratops. You see like the crisp scales? The scales are terrible, they're designed terribly, but they're crisp. The paint is like pretty neat overall. It doesn't have the grittiness that like the old Papo figures had with their paint and stuff and the natural tones, which I think complemented their gritty style better than bright green and everything, which I will give to this Concavenator. The colors do make it look like it is just completely and utterly rotting away before our eyes. But this looks like a knockoff. It looks like a knockoff in quality compared to even the Papo Protoceratops. You can see the individual brush strokes where they took just globs of yellow-orange paint and just went bleh over each of like the spaghetti nodules going across its body. The way the dry brushing was done, there was like too much paint on the brush here, and it was just done over a really darkly molded figure just to barely bring out the detail enough, which is kind of like a strategy that a lot of knockoff figures do from AliExpress, is they mold the figure in a dark color, and me being a painter, I know this. It's an easy way to make the detail stand out, but it makes the figure look cheap at the end of the day. You mold the figure in like a dark gray or a black, and then you take a big glob of paint, and you just like dry brush over that darkness, so you have the dark cracks coming out of the inside of the scales and everything. Instead of like on this Papo T-Rex, well, you've got dry brushing and everything, but you have like a different base color, you've got different tones and brushing, and even some washes in there likely to bring out the detailing in different ways and make it look lifelike. This is just cheap. Not to mention, I spent like $30 on this. Yeah, the Papo Protoceratops is $20 last year. This thing was $30. This thing was $30. Oh. Now the paint looks horrible on it, but the detailing too is like, what is going on? What is even happening here? This thing looks low resolution. This thing looks like a PlayStation 1 game. Like the scales are there, but they look blurry. I don't know how to explain it. The detail is like present but non-existent at the same time. It's so strange, I have no idea. And that's most apparent on the head, where it's like, what are you guys doing? The whole top part of the skull, the whole upper jaw and everything, the scales just look blurry, like they're blown up and heavily pixelated or something. And the bottom jaw has these super fine, like really tiny scales that don't match anything else on the body. Like, what's happening? Oh, my pizza is here. Let me get my food to save myself. 1 second. Okay, and the last thing I really wanted to touch on here was the articulated jaw feels super loose and super cheap compared to Papo kind of being the kings on the market for really nice, fitting, and tight feeling joints for the articulated jaws. This one is completely and utterly terrible, not to mention the gap on the bottom is completely and utterly unforgivable. At the base of the neck, you can see the inside of the mouth from under there, but anyways. This is crazy. I can't believe, if you told me that Papo was going to release this, I wouldn't believe you. I bet all the money that I ever owned ever to say that Papo would release something, that anybody would release something like this. Even all of the knockoff companies that like stitch together Frankenstein dinosaurs from multiple sculpts from different companies on AliExpress and everything. I wouldn't think they would bore a hole in the flesh of their dinosaur to expose the rib cage. In case you're wondering how big this figure is, I don't care. Thank you to my channel members as always for supporting my content and allowing me to buy atrocities like this. Particularly shout out to Raphael Tree Kangaroo and a Trash Bug for being Spino Chads. If you want to join my channel and watch my future suffering and support it financially, then you can get that down next to my name. Click the join button down below.